You know, watching a video without audio really sucks, but guess what? Playing pinball without the audio is really horrible too. So on today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up all of your audio, including a surround sound feedback system, so we can have 7.2 surround sound inside this thing, shaking our cabinets, making it feel like a real thing. Stick around, it's going to be awesome. All right, so up to this point, we've got our baller installer and our games are playing. We've got the buttons working, we've got our nudge, we got our tilt. It's all working great. However, the only audio I've got going on right now is from the playfield TV, and it's under the glass, and it sounds horrible. So we're gonna fix that today by putting in a whole entire SSF kit from Cleveland Software Designs. So let me show you what Philip sent me. Now, all of these parts are part of the Cleveland Software's high power SSF kit. You get a 24-volt power supply. You get his brand new amp that is really 3 amps in one. So this is going to allow you to do your back box ROM music amplifier, as well as your front exciter amplifier and your rear exciter amplifier. So this will do everything all in one. And what else do we have here? We've got a external sound card here, 7.1 surround sound. We've got our 4 puck style spin-on exciters. We've got plug-and-play wires. Like, how awesome is this? It's literally already mounted. You just have to hook these up to your exciters and plug them into the back, and you're done. That's crazy. It's awesome. And we got a bag here with some 3.5 millimeter auxiliary cords. Looks like there's some screws for installing these exciters. There's even some double-sided tape in here, which I'm assuming is to kind of make sure that this external sound card does not move around where you place it. And then the only thing that's not here is actually in the bottom of the cabinet, which is the bass shaker that goes with these exciters, and that has already been mounted into the bottom of the cab in a previous video, so I'll put a link above for you to go see how I installed that. Okay, to finish off the audio for the back box, we've got a 6.5-inch mid-range subwoofer, which is already previously installed in the video that I just put the link above for. And then in the back box, we've got 2 of these 5.25-inch Rockford Fosgate speakers to put in. So let's put all of these speakers and exciters in, and then I'll show you how to wire them up. So here's the bass shaker from Cleveland Software's high power SSF kit, and there's the 6.5-inch mid-range subwoofer. So I'm so glad I pre-installed this before I started adding in everything here. Otherwise, it would have been really tricky to get that installed. These are done, so let's move on to the exciters. Now, these exciters are designed to shake whatever you mount them to, so that sound effect can get transmitted into the cabinet and up through into our hands so that we can feel those real vibrations and stuff coming from our mechanical parts in our game. So the placement of these exciters is pretty critical, especially if we want a really good 7.1 surround where a ball rolling down a ramp or down the playfield will transition those vibrations and feelings and sounds from the back to the front. So where I recommend you put the back ones is go all the way to the back, kind of as far as you can go, but don't go past the TV. And for me, it's actually easier to kind of be able to get out for the wiring and stuff just before my hinge point here. And then you got to keep in mind that this playfield is going to lay down. So if you need to mark with a pencil or some masking tape where you can't go above. And so for me, I don't want to go above where the center pivot post is. So it's going to be somewhere about like this. And I will take some measurements so that I can make the other side exactly the same. And you're going to want to make sure that the tabs that come off where you're putting your spade connectors for your wires, you know, think about where you're going to want them facing. I want them facing down so I can make this nice and clean wiring. And because these are spin-on back exciters, and you're going to mount the inside first, what I would recommend is you snug this up as tight as you can, and then make a mark with a Sharpie on the actual part you're going to mount to the top so that you know that when you tighten it up, it's going to be facing down. Okay, and the other thing while you're at it too is these are labeled positive and negative. There's a little red kind of ink on one of these. The other one's the ground. So what I would do is just take a Sharpie and mark the negative side so that once you've got it mounted, you can still see which one's positive, negative. Now on the front exciter, we want these as close as we can to the flipper buttons where our hands are, but within reason, right? You still have to access it and be able to mount it okay. And same thing, we're gonna want the wires facing down. So for me, somewhere about there, I gotta make sure that I'm below this surface here, otherwise the playfield mount is gonna hit it. And somewhere like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and mount these. And what you're going to do is spin off the back, and then this little part here has 2 holes in it. So you can figure out where you want it to be, and then pre-drill some holes for your screws and go ahead and mount these with that little Sharpie mark facing up That way when you twist these on, these tabs will be facing down. And when you're ready to go, you can peel off the self-adhesive as well. Put the 2 screws in, go ahead and snug these up. All right, now that this side's done, go ahead and do the other side and then we'll move on. All right, so I'm gonna put this amplifier on the shelf right next to the dude's cab, and just so you guys are aware, off camera, I did have to undo these screws on the top and bottom plates just to switch them out. And the way that Phil has designed this amplifier is that those panels can interchange because he has the labeling on both panels, so it doesn't matter, you can't mix it up. But I did need to switch them because I wanted the bracket to be on the bottom so I could bolt it to the shelf. If you wanted to put this underneath the shelf like this, then you just have to flip it around, make sure that the brackets are on the top piece. So interchangeable, very cool design feature. All right, so I'm gonna put this on the shelf here and then just put it where I want it and kind of center it in the gap here between the wall and the dude's cab. And then when I am happy with the position, just hold it down and mark it out on those tabs for where I have to center punch and drill a pilot hole for the screws to mount this to that shelf. All right, so I've got this external sound card. Now before I throw it into the cabinet on top of the amplifier, I thought I would show you where the connections are because you're not gonna be able to see it once it's in there. So you can see I've already got the cables, these 3.5 millimeter auxiliary cables in the front, side, and rear. And that's the ones you need to have plugged into this external sound card. Now I've also picked off the little rubber feet that are on this, just so they're not sticking out really high, so I can clean and put the double-sided tape that came with the kit onto this. Then I can just plop this on top of the amplifier and then it won't go anywhere. Okay, so we've got this 24-volt power supply, so we're gonna put this back, probably try to move it as far back in the cabinet as I can. Keep all the wiring pretty up front, and then this just plugs into the end here where it says power 24 DC. And we'll clean up and pretty up these wires after. And then go ahead and plug this in one of the controlled electrical plugs on the smart power strip. And then the cable from the front goes into where it says speakers left, right. Then the side cable goes into where it says back, left and right in. And then the last one that says rear actually goes to the front, left, right in. Time to start plugging the wires from our exciters to the amplifier. So this end goes the amplifier. It's already put on for us. Awesome. And these already have the female spade connectors. So we're just going to push them on and route the cables. How simple is that? Okay, that was the front left exciter. So we just take the other end and plug it into the amp where it says front left. Easy peasy. Moving on to the next ones. Okay, and don't forget, the red wire's got to go to the positive one. That's red color on the back. And we marked with a Sharpie the black negative one, so the black wire's got to go to that one. Okay, and that one was the front right. Okay, on to the rear left. Okay, rear left goes into the back left one. And then that was back right. Then we got the subwoofer. And for these ones here, there's a hole in the side here, but you have to push down on it to open up the hole. And then when you put it in, make sure it's in all the way. And then when you let it go, it'll grab. Now the red is on the right, so that's your positive. Okay, and that one was for the sub. Okay, and then the bass shaker goes into there. Right now to install the back box speakers, these are the 5 1/4 inch speakers that normally would go into kind of like a pocket in a door of a vehicle. And so it sits in like this, and the speaker grill sits over top, and then the same screws would be mounting this entire thing. Now that looks actually pretty decent in this cabinet, not a bad option. However, there is not a lot of room for LEDs. And if you are not wanting to put LEDs on your V-pin, I think you need to rethink that. The best way I can think about it is, you know when the dog throws up and you watch him eat up the throw up so you don't have to clean it up? That's a great feeling. And that feeling happens every single time you see those lights flash and differently for every single game you play. So I'm going to be adding LEDs to mine. So this doesn't really work for me. There's not a lot of room inside this cover without having the speaker, when it's moving back and forth, touch. So let me show you what I'm going to do to mount it instead. All right, so I'm going to mount the speaker from the back side. I'm just going to center it in that hole, and it looks like there's not a lot of meat in the wood for the screws, so I'm going to have to go at a slight angle outwards to make sure that there's enough strength there. And then there are some slots here in this pinballcabinet.com flat pack already, so that when I go to put in the LED speaker rings, that can fit inside of the hole, and then there's some spots for the wires to escape out so we can get power and signal to get out to those. Now, I'm not going to put these rings in this video. I'll save this for doing an LED video later, but we're going to use these and probably not every single ring. So let's go ahead and install these now. Okay, go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, and then we can start wiring this up and hook it back up to the amp. So for right now, I'm going to leave the covers off because I am going to do LEDs pretty quick here. But if I decide to go with this, I'll add that later. Or I do have something completely custom that I might be adding, and I think it's going to look pretty sick. So just have to wait for that. Okay, that was the speaker left. Now when you put these speaker wires in, make sure you got the red and black and the right spots. In my case, I'm using the wires that came with the actual speakers, and the only thing that identifies the two black wires is a white strip. And when I put it on, it was the bigger spade connector onto the negative. So the black with white strip is ground. So just make sure that you don't switch the polarity. Okay, and then that was the last one, which was speaker right. Now, if you look next to it, there is no wires going to this. This is in case you want to hardwire your own positive and negative wires from a separate 24-volt power supply that you may have in your cabinet, as opposed to using the 24 power supply that came with the kit. So nothing's going in this one. All right, at this point, just double check all your connections are correct and going to the right places, so you're not kind of scratching your head wondering why things are mixed up later. And go ahead and take your time to clean up all the wires with our wire management setup here. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll show you a shot of what it looks like now, and then we can compare it with what it looks like after. And take your time, make sure it looks good. It's always nice to be able to show off your work outside and inside the cabinet. Okay, and then don't forget your USB connection for your external sound card to go to the computer. Make sure that you've got your amplifier turned on and on the correct settings, because you might be thinking, oh my God, this isn't working, and it's just because it's literally not kind of plugged in. The other thing I would highly recommend is that you check all the knobs and the volume settings. Do not have those things cranked right off the bat. Good chance of clipping and having some issues with your speakers. So make sure they're turned down. I would recommend maybe like quarter the way or maybe max halfway. That way for sure they're on, but they're not going to blow anything from being on full blast when you turn this thing on. Okay, next thing up is to set up all of this 7.1 sound in our computer. So I'm excited to hear what this thing's going to sound like. Let's go. All right, now that we've got everything plugged in, let's figure out our PC stuff. So we're going to go down to here, Start menu, and just type in sound. And the very first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your output device has switched over to speakers, or USB sound device is what you're looking for. So for mine, it switched from my LG to the USB sound device, so that's good. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to scroll down. Where do we want here? We can just go up to here and click on sound. Go back a menu. Once again, make sure you're on your USB sound device for your speakers. And then you're going to go down, Windows 11 changing things on here, go to more sound settings, and then from this screen you're going to make sure that the USB sound device is once again the default device, and then we're going to right click and go to configure speakers. Okay, now you're going to change yours from stereo to 7.1, And then you can test the sounds, or you can click on each of these little speakers to test and put your hands on the cabinet to make sure that you're actually feeling and hearing those sounds. So here we go. Okay, that was left back box, right back box. There is no center channel and there is no sub in this. There's our left and right front and left and right back exciters. Awesome. Okay, then we're going to go to next, and then you can click off center. We definitely do not have center. Okay, and then you can leave the rest of these. Click next, and then just click next again. And like I said, you can test these if you need to. Click next. That part is done. Click finish. Okay, close this up. And then the other thing we got to do is we got to go into VPX, into the audio settings. So we could go through this little pinup shortcut folder, or we can literally go through our C drive. So this PC, C drive, V Pinball, Visual Pinball. Scroll to the bottom, find your default V Pinball X. And then we're going to go up to Preferences and hit Audio Options. And you're going to want to make sure that under the General Output Sound Device, you have your 2 USB sound device. And then same thing for your Backglass Specific. Make sure it's set up as your USB sound device. And you're also going to want to make sure that you have 7.1 surround checked off here. Okay, and then just press Save Changes, press OK. And that's it. So let's see how this sounds. Now, due to YouTube sound copyright issues, I am going to find some music here that we can play loud enough so we can hear some stuff without having any issues. All right, for those of you wondering about how nice and how loud and how clean my speakers sound with those Rockford Fosgates 5 1/4 and the 6.5 inch mid-range sub, this is some royalty-free music. Very nice and clean. I can hear stuff around my shop vibrating. Not this, the stuff around in the shop. All right, so now that we got the kit all installed, let's go ahead and have a game and so we can show it off to you guys, see what it sounds like. Now, I tried really hard to think of a game that I could play really nice and loud and not have any issues with copyright for YouTube. So I have decided to go with my current favorite pinball machine that I'm playing right now, and it is called Laser Q. If you have not played this game or even tried it, please download it. It is an amazing game and very easy to learn too. Right, let's play some Laser Q. Oh, yeah. All right, let's play some Laser Q. First off, flippers. Oh yeah, they sound great, and I can feel the vibrations coming through my hands as I'm being peppered in the face with laser shots from the back glass. Awesome. These sound effects remind me of the 80s back in the arcades. All right, here we go. Pew, 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 pew. Awesome. Beautiful sound effects. Oh, a little chime action too. Yeah, if you haven't tried Laser Q yet, put this on your list. You got to master that dead bounce on the right there. Let it bounce over. Don't go for it. Because if you open up those flippers, you're going to have that gap to deal with. And this happens. So you kind of got to quickly tap it. Get that 6 shot. The other shot you got to master too is the one at the top there. Let it bounce, make the 7 shot. Whoop. The other way you can make shots if you're having trouble is by hitting the ball target. They're ball targets. Once you spell out ball, it'll give you one of the shots. Or you can keep making shots for pool up at the top. And once you spell pool, it'll give you a letter in ball. Lots going on. And this second flipper shot up there, you can make it get up there and quickly move the lights. All right, oh, little nudge there. Once you've got the all the way to 8, you start back at the center drop targets for the, and you start again, you start another rack of balls. Ooh, there we go, that was a good ball. Whew, 283, that's pretty awesome. All right, that's Laser Cube, download it tonight. All right, so a couple last things for this video is do not just leave your amp settings like they are. Yes, you got it working and it sounds great and you're excited, but spend a good 20 minutes, half an hour, play a game, start listening to all the exciter vibrations and feelings, adjust the front and back how you like it, and the volumes that sound really, really nice without clipping where the sounds start to get muddied and distorted. And go ahead and dial everything in, all your sub frequencies. It'll be well worth your time. Now, don't worry about every single table being the same, because you're going to find that some tables are louder than others and some are softer. And that's where Pinball comes into handy. And I'll post a link above for my Pinball video so you can go see how to install that and get it set up after this. And it's one of these things with the SSF surround sound feedback that it's really hard to show and explain through a video. You can obviously hear it, but keep in mind that we're also feeling every single little sound and mechanical clunk. So it feels like real flippers, real pop bumpers, real things happening. And you can feel it all through your hands. So if you are on the fence at all about putting in a surround sound feedback system, do not hesitate. Get that couple $100 and get it in. It is well worth it. And it just makes your virtual pinball cabinet come to life. Some really good tables for you to test your SSF are Diner, High Speed Getaway. Yeah, find a table that has some really great effects. World Cup Soccer has some really good wire form sounds. So just find a table that you like and give it a crack. So it's been a couple of weeks of me playing on the virtual pinball cabinet since I've installed the SSF kit from CSD. Now, I thought I would end this video with kind of like an honest review of what I thought of this kit. So for pros and cons, pros, you're really getting a lot of bang for your buck. It's not that expensive of a setup, and the amp itself is like a $70, $80 amp. And speaking of which, the amp is quite powerful. I've got it turned down probably even less than halfway, and there's room to go. And more importantly for me is that when you turn up an amplifier, does it sound clean and crisp? Does everything sound okay? And this thing is amazing clarity, so it's awesome. The kit itself was very plug and play. You mount the exciters to the cabinet walls in the right spots. The wires had the connectors already mounted on them, so it's really plug and play into the amplifier. The amplifier has different mounting options, and put in your external sound card and you're good to go. It has all the tuning knobs for frequencies and volumes so that you can get your 7.1 sound totally dialed in. So I was quite impressed with the kit. For cons, one thing I noticed is that when I'm standing at the front of the cabinet and I am playing no audio, so I'm basically just sitting on a desktop, there is a faint noise that you can just barely hear, and I'm pretty picky with that kind of stuff. So I just thought I'd let you guys know about that. Some people probably won't even notice it. That's about the volume. One other thing is when you shut the power off to the virtual pinball cabinet, there can be a pop from the speakers. That's not too bad, but if that affects you, then you could reach in the coin door and shut off the amplifier before you shut off the virtual pinball cabinet. Now, that all being said, I would highly recommend this kit from CSD, and I'm sure I'm going to be enjoying this while I play some more after I'm done filming here. All right, that's a wrap in another video from Way of the Wrench, this time on how to install your Cleveland Software Designs SSF kit. If you have any questions, why don't you put it down in the comment section below and I will help you out as much as possible. What's next? Man, I think we need to get some toys put in here. How about we put a gear motor and I'll show you how to set up DOF. Sound good? Yeah? All right, deal. If you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram? That way you can see what's going on in this cool shop in between these videos. Till next time, take it easy.